All right.
All right. What's up, everybody? It is your First Lady, Miss Bernadine Truth, alongside.
It's your man and I see. How y'all
And
doing?
we are the Urban Collective Show, so we are super excited to be on air with you all. Well, virtual air, live streaming with you all as we continue to be in what would one call a stay-home lockdown status given coronavirus, COVID-19. But really excited to be back on air with NIC, who is in his distinctive place of rest, and I am in mine, to bring you all another segment of our show. So, NIC, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Trying to stay as positive as I can.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I don't know. Like today, I read the news. I was watching the press conference, and they're talking about the amount of deaths that we may experience from this whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
And their best estimate is maybe 100,000 people. And it's like, wow. So yeah, trying to stay positive, trying to working every day, trying to stay with my routine that I spoke to you guys about in the past couple of weeks, but keeping a positive outlook. What about you?
No, for sure. I mean, I'd say the same. I think that I definitely had my breaking point over the weekend where I was like, this cannot be life. But then recharged and regrouped and, really changed my perspective, I think, in the way I'm thinking. Not so much looking at this reality as being stuck and being antisocial, but really trying to focus on some positives that are coming from this, right? Grateful that I have shelter, grateful that I have food, grateful that I have like roommates, grateful that I have a job, like, just really thinking about just thinking about this through a different lens, I think is super helpful and beneficial right now. So that's kind of like where I am. But I'm really excited for this particular segment, right? Because as an entrepreneur myself, in addition to working a traditional like 9-to-5 job, I'm really looking forward to having a segment where we are, ladies and gentlemen of the collective, focused on other entrepreneurs and business owners who are doing their best to maintain and to survive through coronavirus, and then really talking to somebody else who I'm not going to mention right now until we introduce them, because I feel like me saying where he works just kind of already lets people know who he is. We're really talking about the economic implications of that as a city for us, and as a state for us as well, really understanding like what's going on. So, really trying to think about like my positive thinking mind, putting that positive thinking hat on, and not trying to get boggled down by all of this. So, but I still feel like, I don't know. I mean, I want to bring up like other elements of like what I've been thinking about and reflecting on today, but I'm also like, is this just COVID-19? So, NIC, let me know. So I kind of want to. I mean, this is a 1-year anniversary of Nipsey Hussle's death too. Yeah. Like he was killed today, right? And so thinking about that, I'm like, and this is a rapper who I wasn't really familiar with, I don't think, until he actually passed away. Did I understand like the impact he's made in the community and in the world, and how he's influenced people through like rap and music, and thinking about how he passed away in his own hometown in Cali. So just thinking about all of that, like amidst where we are as a world right now. And I'm like, oh, we need some positive love, light, and energy, like to get us through this as a community. Yeah. So maybe I gotta play some Nipsey tonight. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, you should play some Nipsey. I played some Nipsey actually earlier during the day. Just played a couple of songs. I was gonna plan on listening to the whole album, but I didn't get a chance to listen to the whole album because of work and everything. But I just listened to a couple of tracks. Just what he was about. It's still positive.
Yeah.
And I hope that message continues on. That the people that are behind them, his family, his wife, his children, that they carry that message. And that's one of those things where you can have, I see it in two lights, where you have, the example I always give is Biggie, with the way Puff took it after Biggie passed away. You always knew there was somebody riding for Big. And then you had Pac, on the other hand, who passed away, but there was so much commotion, people fighting over music and everything. And it really, people knew he passed away, but it wasn't as well pushed after the death. And there wasn't one message being pushed out there. It was everybody just trying to get their own and try to make money off of it. So I love what's happening. And you have, the Marathon Clothing, the brand, and they have documentaries that's going to be coming out for him. So that should be a pretty good thing happening. And I hope that continues and that gets better over the years.
Right.
So 10 years, 5 years from now, 15 years from now, we still are remembering this day. And the crazy thing too, it's like Big Part passed away March 9th, and you have another great MC that passed away
in the
also
same
on March 9th.
month.
Yeah, so that's crazy.
At the end of March, at the end of the month. I mean, it was like pretty sad. And like you talking about Forlorn London, you know, who was madly in love with this man, and they took like beautiful photos together, had a beautiful family together, and just thinking about like her heartache. And I just think about women in general, not to be biased towards them more so than anything, right? But even right now with like Kobe's passing and like Vanessa and like her mourning and still having to carry on and like keep the children alive. Like, I don't know. I just think that as I reflect too, right? So not just thinking about Nipsey's passing, but 2020, like a lot of people have been like, oh my God, 2020 needs to like end, pause, delete, like we're over this, you know. We've just experienced a lot of loss, right? And now the governor has officially stated that if you're a non-essential business, like you need to be closed until May 4th. And I'm like, there's sadness, there's loss.
That's crazy.
I'm in here for another month.
Minimum.
We're all here for another month. It can't be selfish. It's not just about me, but Lord, I'm here for another month. You know, and just, I don't know, like again, and even right now as I talk about it, I'm like, my mind is just jumping everywhere. I feel like there's just so much to think about. And I have the time to think about them. So, you know, like this is not the time to be like, oh, like I can't think about this right now. I don't have any time right now. It's just like, where are you going? Like, what are you doing? You know, I was talking, it's wild. Like I was talking to one of my school leaders today, and one of them was in the car, and you know, professional hat for sure, but I was also like, where are you going? Like, you know, like I'm some social distancing police. Like, let her live her life. I need to mind my business. Like everybody, like, where you going? Stay home, stay home, stay home. So
but you have to though. It's I think the reality is setting in for a lot of people. A lot of people that did not take this serious, and they're seeing the numbers. And that's the thing with numbers, you know. Like Jay said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. The numbers don't lie. Sometimes there are projections that may not come to fruition, which is a great thing. Like I would hope that 100,000 projection that they're saying does not come anywhere near that. You know, hopefully that we're already almost, I think I had 4,000 already. So the other day we was at 3,000. So today alone, you had over 780 deaths reported across the country. And the president is telling you, hey, brace for the next couple of weeks.
Well, because that's what people are predicting, right? That you know, you said like 100,000. I've read articles talking about like 500,000, and just like again, this is just right. Like, you know, half of the country is gonna have this. You know, 40% of those who have it are gonna be asymptomatic. 6% of people are going to pass away. I mean, but again, these were articles I was reading a couple weeks ago. I'm sure the numbers have changed drastically since. You know, but I think what's hitting home too is when we're talking about the local Boston community, you know, just following up on some of our local elected officials, even, for example, like Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, she was tested and found like she didn't have it, which is amazing, right? Given all of the work that she does and all of her traveling back and forth. But, you know, we had Tito, who was running for mayor a couple of years ago. He put out a heartfelt message to people talking about the importance of staying home because he tested positive for COVID-19 for the virus itself. And he talked about the experience being painful, you know, and struggling to breathe. He's just like, this is pain I wish on no one. You know, and thankfully he has family who have jumped in to like help him and to take care of him. But again, like this is real, and this is in our own backyards. You know, Sheena Collier, shout outs to her. She well, at least that was through her, it came to me anyway, putting on a post, talking to people, encouraging people to share real names of individuals that they know who have this. I had personal friends who have contracted this and who are sick. So it's real. And I think that that's what's really bringing this message home for me, is that it's like in my own backyard. And it's not to say that it had to be in my backyard to feel it.
But it feels realer.
It feels bad. It's different when I'm like, that's like my sister though, you know, or that's a colleague, or, you know, so I definitely It's scary. It's
Yeah,
scary.
it
It's scary.
definitely is. And I mean, one of the bright things and there's been some good stuff happening. You're seeing humanity react. You're seeing human
Mhm.
beings, the compassion of others. That's one of the good things I love seeing in these times. Like, for example, you have Boston that is adding about 240 beds. They're turning a college
Yep.
dorm into beds for homeless people, somewhere for
Mhm.
them to stay, because right now the shelters are being overran and overpopulated. So
Mhm.
that's one of those stories that normally would never happen.
Would never happen.
But it took this for them to realize, okay, you know what, we need to get these homeless people a shelter, someplace for them to sleep, someplace where they can practice the social distancing. Because when you think about it, when you see a lot of homeless people, they're
I
usually
know.
around each other in the same space because for
Right.
whatever the reason they congregate around the same area. But normally, it might be around a shelter or food bank or whatever it might be. So now you have these people that actually have a place to stay. Stories like that I love seeing, because it reminds me personally that, okay, there's still some good people out there. People are still doing great things out there, besides the hoarding and everything else and all the other bad things that you are seeing. There's some greatness and some good that's happening during these
No, absolutely.
times.
Absolutely. I think about hotels opening up their rooms free of charge for folks because, again,
Mhm.
all of those on the front line have to rush home to be with, well, can't rush home to be with their families. There are articles highlighting individuals who are sleeping in their cars and who
Mhm.
are afraid to go home, are afraid to share this, expose their loved ones to this virus. Like, it's definitely a wild time
Yeah.
right now, but and of course the world will continue to document the stories and we'll document the experiences. But for us, I think it was like really important for us to be able to highlight what was going on and how it's impacting individuals. And like I said earlier, I'm really excited to focus in on some businesses because during this time, one of the things we've noticed is just the impact on business owners and small business owners. I mean, the impact on the world economically altogether
Yeah.
has been drastic, right? But I won't jump into it. I'm just really excited about it because it's just something that we're all thinking about, right? Like you talk about the stimulus package
Mhm.
that's like about to really be into full implementation. I mean, they keep talking about sometime in April. It's April 1st,
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
From
I
so
know.
I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, is this
Forget the date.
real? Like,
Only
listen,
reason
I
I
don't.
remember the dates is because the bills are being taken out. That's
No,
all.
but listen, like I was talking to one of my friends earlier today, and I'm like, okay, but tomorrow's like April 1st, like April Fool's Day. Like, are we gonna wake
Mhm.
up and it's just like this was a joke,
I
JK,
know.
ha
Yeah,
ha.
you can't do that.
Definitely, definitely not. But one could hope, right? It's like, oh, joke's on you, like you've been
Mhm.
punked. Um, I don't know. It just makes me nervous. It makes me
Yeah.
nervous, you know.
Yeah. I know. But I mean, we could keep talking about this all night. But like we're doing with the special episodes of Talk 2.0, we have some special guests, some special celebrity guests from our own neighborhood
Mhm.
that is coming on tonight to speak to everyone. I hope you guys have any questions that you have. Make sure you can write them in the comments, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, it doesn't matter. You can post a question. We'll be able to see it. We'll post your question. And hopefully, towards the end of the show, we'll ask them if they pertain to what they're talking about in the moment. We may be able to ask it during that time, but just in case, some questions will come at the end. So, to all the people that are watching out there, all the guests from around the world, make sure you send your questions in. But without further ado, we're going to start bringing in some of our guests for tonight. So I'm going to add them to the stream. Just give me a second. If I
Yeah.
can find this cursor.
I love it because it's like we're live, and so it's just like let's transition. Ooh,
I know.
what's up? We have one guest.
Hey,
Guest number 2. I love it. Check out my celebrity guests, everyone. Okay, celebrity guests, can y'all just wave to the people?
Yeah, say hi to
Wave to the
everyone.
people. Okay, I'm excited. So, as NIC was saying, that we're here, we want to share some important information with all of you, highlight some amazing influencers in the city of Boston who are doing great things, but really putting our hats on, thinking about business and how COVID has impacted businesses, and impacted us economically is like something we really, really need to be able to address in our community. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to two of our celebrity guests that are joining us this evening for a conversation. First off, we have Miss Nia Grace. In September 2018, Nia bought Daryl's Corner Bar and Kitchen. Since then, the restaurant has been thriving with great food, live music, and a phenomenal environment. But before buying a restaurant and settling down in Boston, Nia was working full-time in nonprofit and helmed a couple of her own smaller businesses. So I'm really, really excited to introduce you all to Nia. Nia, can you say hello to the people?
Hello. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. All right. And next up, we have Shagun Idu. Shagun, I always do this. Ido, you're gonna have to tell. And he always makes the same faces all the time. I'm terrible. Shagun is the executive director of BECMA and is an ex officio member of the board of directors. He was raised in Boston and is a proud product of the Boston public school system. Following his graduation from Boston Latin Academy, he earned his Bachelor's of Arts in History from Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia, with honors from Phi Beta Kappa and Golden Key Society. So he's done a lot of work with regards to like local politics, and we're really excited to have him on the show to talk about the world of economics and where we are right now. So Shagun, say hello.
Hello, everybody. I'm glad to be here. And this is, you're lucky I'm letting you that I joined, because you see I'm not wearing a suit. And
excuse me.
it's very uncomfortable for me, but I'm here.
Listen, it works. And shout outs to the Rosa Parks sweatshirt. I have that in a t-shirt. So I'm off for my sister Rosa. It's Women's History Month too, so you get points. It's fine. So with much appreciation. So without further ado, really, we'll just jump into some questions that we have for you all. And then we do have a third guest who's supposed to be joining us. And then once she's connected, we'll just jump right into conversation. Are y'all ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Nia. Awesome. So Nia, talk to us a little bit. Share more about your story as far as like what inspired.
Before we do that, actually, we have our other guests that just joined us. So it's perfect timing. I'm gonna add them to the stream. Hello.
How you doing?
Cheryl.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well.
Awesome. So Cheryl, what we just did, right? I just finished introducing Shagun and Nia to our live audience. And so right now I'm just going to read a little bit about you so people have an idea of who you are. And then we're going to just jump into questions. So you joined right on time.
Thank you.
All right. Of course. All right.
Hello,
so for those
everyone.
of you who don't know, Cheryl Strader is a former owner of popular restaurant Keats Place, previously located in Grove Hall. Her latest venue is Soleil, which opened up at the end of May 2018. It occupies the space that was left vacant, previously owned by Tasty Burger, which closed, which is, for those of you who don't know, is the Bruce Bowling Building, also the home of Boston Public Schools, Central Office. Soleil's cuisine takes influence from Southern cooking, crafted with love, fueled with culinary passion, and is committed to great food and service. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you all to Cheryl. So Cheryl, say hello.
Oh, how's everybody?
Awesome.
I know it's a tough time. I know it's tough.
It is most certainly difficult, but we're really excited to have you all join us, three phenomenal individuals in the city of Boston, to talk about what it's like to be women in business, making it through this virus, and really talking about the impact of economics in all of this as business owners. So thank you all for your time. And again, Shagun, thank you so much for providing your perspective. And I see maybe you want to take it away actually now.
Yeah, of course. So I know both of you, Cheryl and Nia, you ladies are restaurant owners. So we wanted to ask you what inspired you to own a restaurant in Boston, especially we have a lot of restaurants around here and it's a business that you always hear that's thriving, but is always difficult to maintain. So what inspired you to own a restaurant in Boston?
Years ago, when I started back in '96, I was inspired just to follow the passion that I have for food. I attended Johnson & Wales later in life to hone in on my craft, but it's just the love that goes into food and what it means to our culture and to nourish my soul and all of my guests. It's just been a long-standing vision that I've had.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, Cheryl, as far as like your experience and your time at Johnson & Wales leading you to being here. Nia, what about you? What inspired you to own a restaurant?
Well, I think for me it was similar to the food and the culture and me being relating to it. When I actually walked into the specific concept of Daryl's and having been familiar with Bob the Chef, the concept around the music as well, and that kind of like holistic experience of when you're coming in, we're giving you good food, we're giving you good entertainment, it's a great show. That concept altogether are things are like that I'm passionate about as well. So that specifically, I had always wanted, but never thought that I was going to make this trajectory. Again, with my history in nonprofit, wasn't sure I was going to make this trajectory. So it's one of those things that was kind of like a blessing, and kind of been able to kind of pounce on it in that opportunity.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing that perspective too. I'm so excited to just dive in a little bit further about your stories and your experiences thus far. But we also have to talk to Shagun. So Shagun, can you tell us what BECMA even stands for, and what role it has in like what you do there?
Yes. So first of all, I love both of these young women that you had join us this evening. I'm looking forward to hearing their stories as well, because BECMA exists to serve their needs and to support in whatever way. So for those who may not know, BECMA is the Black Economic Council of Massachusetts. We were founded almost 5 years ago to address the racial wealth gap across Massachusetts. Founded after the Federal Reserve released that study that showed that the gap between Black and white families was astronomical, that the median net worth of white families was $247,500, and that the median net worth of the average Black family in Boston was $8. And so one of the things that came out of a lot of meetings that happened at that time was to form a group that would serve to protect and grow and advance the interests of Black business owners, understanding that Black business owners live and locate in our communities, they hire people from our communities, and they reinvest what they earn back into our communities. So if we're going to reduce the wealth gap, we have to invest in our businesses. And so we do that in 3 ways. We have close to 300 members today. And so very quickly, we advocate for policies and practices that are going to advance the interests of our business members. We convene solutions-oriented conversations in our communities, because there's no point in talking about the problem because we live it. And finally, we make connections between our business members, between them and one another, them and folks in the private or public sector, them and contract opportunities and other resources that are available. So we're here tonight to share some of those resources and to talk more about what the impact of COVID-19 is on the Black community overall.
Thank you so much. So again, 2 amazing business owners and a person who I wouldn't say puts the money or helps to put the money in the pockets of Black business owners. So thank you so much. And I see.
So talking about that, we wanted to get started by asking how each one of you, this goes out to all 3 of you, how have you been impacted with the stay-at-home order professionally and also personally? Because you have 2 sides of the coin, whether professional, your restaurant owners, your business owners, but at the same time, we're all human beings. So how has this affected each one of you?
Yeah, I think for us, we had to immediately, lay off a significant amount of our workforce. And so, that's one of the things that, large companies and small companies are having to do. And for a person, like all of us who are from the community, and really knowing our staff and our staff being more like family is something that, it feels a different way, although we know that this is something that we have to do. So immediately, that's one of the things that we felt as an impact.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And how about personally for you though? So like that's the business side, right? But like, how is Nia?
I think that, how is Nia doing? It's I think when we think about women in business, we have to be very strong leaders. We have to be very decisive. So even in the midst of, how am I personally doing? I'm actually personally okay, because in this moment, you really have to be grounded. There are a lot of people, we have whatever our staff size is, whatever our network size is, be it family or professionally. There are people who are looking at us to kind of be that beacon. And still actually, making sure that we're taking care of ourselves. I know that we're doing that. and we're making decisions in our own time. We're not being bombarded by a lot of the information that is coming our way on a daily basis, because that is something that can kind of take us off of our course. For me, personally, taking care of, our staff, our workforce right now has been the priority, and then making sure that they have a business to come back to. So, and that makes me all right. I feel good about that, because we got to get to that goal. So.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Cheryl,
So
go ahead.
similarly, to lay off your staff, it was gut wrenching, because we are family. That's how we operate. And it was very, very difficult. So how I'm doing personally, I'm using this time to upgrade some of our policies, perfecting a cookbook for my staff. So I am doing okay. I'm doing more of the administrative hands-on work, but it's been very, very difficult for the people that I work with. Yeah.
And what about
to have that conversation? That things are going to change. But like Nia said, there's going to be a business for them to come back to.
Right. And that's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Thank you for sharing that too, Shagun.
So I can talk about how it's impacting our members in terms of, for BECMA, this last year we were fortunate to be able to host the inaugural Mass Black Expo at the Convention Center. So of course, with COVID-19, we are trying to reimagine that event, because we had about 1,000 people come through last year. Of course, even if the quarantine ends next week, folks are going to be a little antsy about being around 1,000 people again.
Right.
Because quarantine ends doesn't mean COVID is gone. So, so we're reimagining that. But, what's more important to us is how this is impacting our business members, and therefore developing strategies to address that. So, before the state even really took all the adequate action they've been taking, we conducted a survey of our membership to get a sense of what the early stage of this was having on our business community. We had about 75 businesses reply from all over the state, to Boston, Quincy, Fitchburg, Worcester, Cambridge, a couple other places. And we found things that were troubling, but also not unbelievable. The Black business community was already in a precarious position before COVID-19 struck the world. So this is having an even more dangerous and debilitating effect on our community. So just some quick numbers is that about 90% of the people that responded said that this is having a somewhat to severe impact on their finances. About 60% of folks said that they can't survive more than 3 months. We know that for and a hefty portion of that said they can't survive at all, which was concerning. And so, the reason why that's important to us is because a lot of these programs, we can talk more about later on, that are coming down from the federal government, the state, they're all great, but you're not going to see that money for, maybe a month. And so for a lot of our business members, it's like they need something now in order to get them to be able to be ready for some of these programs. And then, to add to what Nia and Cheryl have said, more than half of those that responded employ more than one person. I think the total for full-time employees was 500 something. And, a good almost half of them have similar stories that they had to lay people off. And so for us, this is really important because, there are 1,200 Black-owned businesses in Massachusetts that employ more than one person. These 1,200 businesses employ 13,000 people and infuse over $1 billion in the Massachusetts economy. And so for us, if we're not protecting these businesses, that's 13,000 more people on the unemployment lines.
Right.
But we're also losing revenue as a state. And really, the economies of whole communities are impacted.
Right.
This isn't just one shop down the street closing. This is, all of Nubian Square and Upham's Corner, et cetera, closing their doors because they don't have the resources to survive, 60, 90 days.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that. Also thinking about, I appreciate the fact that you reached out to the community too and really got a pulse check of what people are thinking and how people are feeling during this time. Because I think as we talk about policies or solutions, right, it's important to understand like to what magnitude are we impacting those or supporting those who need it the most. To that, I would say to Cheryl and Nia, at what point did you all start experiencing a decline in your business? Right. So, we've had this conversation, like COVID is coming around. We've heard like trickling conversations about like how serious it is. Some people didn't feel like it was as serious. So at what point did your business really start to feel this impact?
Yeah. So about 3 weeks ago, when there was heavy discussion of it being in Europe, we could see the panic in some of our guests who cater. So we saw a cancellation in catering that was a week out. And then the following week, we saw cancellations in events and catering that was taking place both on site and off site begin to cancel. Right. So, as each week came and passed, it affected our numbers.
Right.
But it's been a good 3 weeks for us.
3 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What about you, Nia?
Yeah, I would say immediately, the state of emergency was declared on March 10th. That weekend, Mayor Walsh talked about schools being closed until April. And then, that Friday, our business had declined. We saw only about 30% of our normal audience just on that Friday. And that continued throughout the weekend. So, we lost it immediately.
Oh, wow.
So sorry. So I'm like, the challenge with like being live too. I'm like, wait, but like, so Nia, for you have like live performers as well, right? So you have people who are coming in, but also people who are typically there. Did they express any like concern or desire to no longer be there given?
Well, I think that, both Cheryl and I were, probably very well versed in the precautions that have been taking place by different restaurants in order to keep our customers safe as well as our employees safe at the same time and make sure that we're, going above and beyond our regular sanitary practices in the first place. And so we, put stations around the restaurant to add additional sanitizing stations to add additional security. And we just kept taking the lead of our government officials. And so, whatever the CDC had to say, whatever the Massachusetts Public Health had to say, for us, we just kept adapting to whatever that need needed to be. And so on the first night, I think for us, it was like, well, let's see how this goes. And, I was just shocked at it. It just felt like a ghost town on Friday night.
Yeah.
So what about for you, Cheryl? What precautions have you taken in your staff that you've taken throughout this whole pandemic?
So as far as our takeout protocol is changed. Before we had, open forks and knives. We've gone to all packaged items. The hand sanitizers around the restaurant, trying to keep the physical distance. We're in the headquarters of the Boston School Department, so it hit us when the schools started to close. Although there were still administrators in the building, as they started to exit, it just declined, and our takeout really took a hit. But we took all the precautions and took the leads, from the CDC, as Nia said, and just made the adaptations as we could.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So Shagun, in hearing really what's been taking place at two of our prominently known restaurants in Boston, Black-owned restaurants at that, and also earlier you mentioned how, BECMA really came in as a response to knowing that Black people make $8 to $257,000 plus to our white peers. Like, what do you think it would take for Black business owners to rebuild from this economic crisis that's going on right now, given COVID-19?
Well, I think we've seen that a country that's been telling us they don't have any resources has shown us that if reparations could be paid, that's not what this calls that. So, what I'll say is what we've been advocating for and some things that are coming down the pipeline. So at the end of the day, we know that resources, that money, capital is needed, as well as some technical assistance for some businesses to navigate the HR stuff with employees, et cetera. So a couple of things have happened since the governor announced, since the governor announced the state of emergency, but then also since the administration and the White House has taken this more seriously. So two things immediately became available. So the first was that the Small Business Administration announced that they would be making emergency loans available for eligible businesses. So, OK program, whatever. And then the state announced that they were creating a $10 million fund to provide loans as well to mass businesses. They had to shut that program down in 36 hours because they received close to 3,000 applications, where it was determined that the need was for $135 million in that 10. So they were back at the drawing board to find out where to get more money. We've seen so Boston is working on something, I should say, but we've seen cities like Worcester, Cambridge, Salem, and a couple other places where they have developed grant programs, which is what BECMA is working on and what we're advocating for. Because even though these loan programs are helpful for Black people in particular, a couple things are true. First is a lot of our businesses don't qualify for these existing loan products. Also, given the history of Black people and loans and how predatory lending and all that kind of stuff, we don't want to take out loans, and or our businesses are not in a position to take on more debt in order to try to survive this, right? Because the way a lot of these loans are set up is that we'll give you this now, but then maybe 6 months you don't have to pay anything, but then you got to pay interest after 6 months or a year. But it's like that is assuming that this business is going to get level-headed and then profitable again in that timeline. But we don't know that given just how things are. We don't know how this is going to play out.
Right.
So we've been pushing for there to be grants that are available, which is essentially free money to get to our businesses in particular. So a couple ways that's happening. So we've been working with the Mass CDC, the Mass Association of CDCs, with Commonwealth Kitchen to push on the state level. There are some policy recommendations made that the state ought to set aside $150 million to help small businesses right now. And that 70 million of that needs to be in the form of some type of grant program. And then out of that 70, 30 of it needs to be specifically for minority and low-income communities and their businesses. Now, that doesn't mean that only 30 million would be for us, but that at least 30, which is almost, or if not half of that, goes for our businesses. Secondly, I will say, so I can't share details about these particular things, but folks should know that this is being worked on. So the Foundation for Business Equity, which is housed via Eastern Bank and the Boston Foundation, has been working on developing a product that's going to be helpful to growing businesses in the Black and Brown communities. And then BECMA itself is working with a number of partners like Commonwealth Kitchen and Amplify Latinx and some others to develop a grant program for micro and small Black and Brown businesses. So right now we're in the fundraising area and making sure we have enough to get that off the ground and get meaningful amounts to businesses that will help them get through the next few months. Tied to both of these programs is going to be technical assistance, wraparound support services that's going to help folks apply for some of the other existing programs that are on the government levels, and as well as helping folks better set up their business, either to prepare for what life will be like in the virtual world, or to do things like what Cheryl mentioned earlier, that like she's using this time to develop stronger policies, to develop employee materials. We want to be able to help folks think about, first of all, how to spend this time, but also to help them through that process so that we're using this time wisely, so that we come out at the end of this stronger. So those are some things that we're doing. But at the end of the day, it's money. That's what's needed, money.
Right,
And
money.
it's free money to get to our businesses so they can, inject that into their operating expenses to help keep people on the payroll. There's also the CARES Act that we just passed on Friday in Congress, $2.2 trillion that the government found out of nowhere, but hey, they're going to use it to help us, which is great. There are a number of things that we can talk about later if you want, about specifically what's in that package, but these are other opportunities and really actually important and great resources for small businesses, like the Payment Protection Program that's going to help keep employees who are still employed on the roll. The SBA, Small Business Administration, has a new part of their loan program now that when you apply for a loan, you'll get an advance of $10,000, whether or not you've been approved. And even if you get denied, you won't have to pay that part of the loan back. So these are important features that came out of that. And not to promote on someone else's show, but we'll be talking with Congressman Presley about this on Thursday. We just confirmed that like 20 minutes ago. So of course I'll get the details to yourself and your audience. But so these are the things that we know need to happen, but we're trying to get money together now
To make it happen.
right now in their pockets.
Absolutely. And I thank you for sharing that, because as I think about, the difference between the loans, right, having to pay it back versus the grant that's in fact given, if you can just kind of like briefly let us know, like when we're thinking about who qualifies for what are typically the numbers in revenue that qualify, right? So like I'm looking at Nia and I'm looking at Cheryl right now, like do they qualify? Do they not qualify?
Yeah.
Does a smaller, women's focused organization qualify or not, or an arts initiative, right? So like at what point is one truly considered a small business that could actually benefit from something like this?
And that is a phenomenal question. Thank you for asking. I didn't plant it. Here's why we're pushing for grants. For the loan product, so let's take the SBA. The SBA initially, and now even after the CARES package was passed, they're saying, we'll give people a loan up to, at first it was $2 million, now it's $10 million. Great. Sounds like, up to $10 million, right? So, but this is based on your revenue, what you were making before. So they take your operating expenses from, whatever time period, and then your loan is dependent on that. So you can just go in and have been making, $500,000 and go for a $10 million loan, right? They're going to look at what you need. But a lot of people, like SBA, they will say you have to have been profitable. Period. So you have to show that. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know if there is a threshold, but we are putting together a conversation with Bob Nelson, who's the administrator in Massachusetts for the SBA, to answer those types of questions. But they say you have to have been profitable. They do have, I think their lowest credit score is 600 or 580. I can't remember. It's around that area. They do require collateral, which is, not something that, we're for, but that's what they need in order to process your loan, and all these other requirements. Some of the other loan programs, again, only focus on businesses that are above, let's say, 250,000 or 500,000. And so for Black businesses in the state, that eliminates a whole portion of our businesses, which I guess is entirely the point of DECMA, right? We're here to help folks get up to that level or beyond, because there are so many of us who aren't there yet. It's because of the lack of investment from the state and the private sector. So part of that, that's again why we're for grants, but then also grants that are for businesses that are under, let's say, 500 to 250,000. Because businesses that are over 500,000 are probably in a position to be able to take on these loans, even considering that these are forgivable loans. So if you meet the criteria set forth, you actually won't be paying these loans back at all. They'll be forgiven, and it essentially will be a grant. And so, again, for us, we're working to make sure that there are grants, because majority of our businesses would not be able to take advantage
Right. Of these
But I
loans.
will say that just quickly on the federal stuff, for the SBA, that is for businesses and nonprofits, which is different than how they've operated before. So non and for profits are eligible for federal resources.
Great. Thank you so much. And I see you take it away.
Yeah. So for Nia and for Cheryl, one of the questions I had for you, with supply demands, people price gouging for supplies like meats and seafood, how is that affecting your supply and demand for the restaurant?
So for us, we actually closed last Wednesday.
Okay.
We were not getting the walk-in volume and the takeout volume that we needed. So right now, supply and demand is a non-issue for us.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, and for us, our supply, that's not the issue. The suppliers are there, they're ready, they want to work. It's the demand that is the problem now.
So what is that looking like? So Cheryl, right? I'm sorry to even hear that you had to close the doors temporarily. I'm putting it out there.
Yes.
We're coming back. I'll be there for breakfast and lunch. Knowing that you've had to close these doors, right? And like prices for your supply chains right now is not something that you're considering. And then for you, Nia, right? Like you have people who are ready to supply for you, but you don't have the people, right? You don't have the people who are ordering enough to really, again, just make sure that you have this content to really benefit off of like that working relationship. What types of conversations have you had with your partners to reassure them that, yes, in fact, like after this COVID virus, this Corona stay home quarantining time is over, that they will in fact still be somebody that you work with?
In terms of our vendors, and I think that the restaurant industry, this community in general, everyone is supportive. The first thing that any sales rep, I believe, that I've worked with did was reach out and said, are you okay? How is everyone doing? Because that's it. It's very interpersonal. So that was the first thing. And then as equally as there is someone on one side purchasing from our business, we're equally not buying from the sales reps who are working on commission. And so they're sitting at home laid off as well. And for our alcohol distributors, this is terrible. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And Cheryl, what have you told your staff, right? I can't, like you said, it was gut wrenching to let them go, and knowing that you closed your doors last week, Wednesday. What did you tell them to provide a level of assurance and security and comfort, I guess, during this time?
So for us, I had a conversation about the challenging time that we are facing, and that our doors will open again and they will be back. It's very, very hard, but I try to be as comforting as possible. We have a walk-in fridge, so we started packing up food for people to take home, whether it was perishable or non-perishable. I just started taking stuff off the shelf. Sorry.
We heard it. It's okay.
I have one staff member. She has 3 children. We are filling crates, sending food home. It speaks to us being a family, taking care of each other during a very difficult time.
So for you, Nia, how have you had to reinvent yourself during this time as a business?
One of the things that everyone, for a lot of restaurants that are still open, are focused on is this takeout and delivery. And that's, we've got, again, this holistic experience that really requires you to be there with us. And so the food is good, but we also had to make sure that we're competing with the rest of the market that are on those online delivery apps. So for your Uber Eats and your Grubhub, looking at their different price points as well, we've got to, kind of reinvent the product that we actually send out for takeout. So that's something that we've been working on, and that's something that we had to do very quickly. We heard about it, and we had to make that decision within a day. Are we going to be able to move forward, and how are we going to do it? And every time, this is our second weekend now in this space, And, we're doing another kind of refining this week to see what how we're going to make sure that we get the best product to our customers.
So a follow-up I had for that. So between the different services like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub, is there some of them that offers, what are the good sides and bad sides, I would say, of each service? Are they pretty much alike, just different vendors?
Well, I know Cheryl can speak to this too in terms of like working with a Grubhub or Uber Eats, but I think, you have to understand that you're paying for a service. Working with some can be difficult sometimes. Right now, the call volume for Grubhub and Uber Eats, it's unattainable in order to get any kind of service. And this is when you really need it, when you're trying to make this change to something that you typically didn't do. For us, takeout was about maybe 1% of our bottom line, 1 to 2%.
Oh, wow.
And so now we're trying to make this everything that we earn. And so, trying to work with them services can be a little bit difficult. For most businesses, if you're able to have a takeout mechanism, directly with the restaurant through your website, it benefits you better. Most of the fees are then going to go to the restaurant. You only have to take care of the credit card fees. But when you use an Uber Eats and a Grubhub, you're paying for all the things that come with that service.
And for us, during the last couple of weeks, we were open. It was difficult to get the drivers to come on time. So you're preparing food and people are on the other end waiting to receive it, and the drivers are late. So it does present a problem when you have a quality product that you've made, but by the time it gets to the destination, we could wait 40 minutes for a driver.
Oh, wow.
That was a challenge. But the online was good. We have ordering online via our website, which is more cost effective.
Right. And I would imagine, I haven't read any articles, so don't quote me on it, but I'd also imagine that during this time, I'm sure Uber has taken a hit too, right? Maybe people aren't looking to drive around and pick people up and deliver food. And so maybe there might be like less drivers on the road. Either way, as I hear all of this, and as I hear you need to talk about all of the extra expenses, one doesn't even factor in that now needs to be factored in to keep your business alive. Like, and Shagun thinking about, again, the importance of providing grants to folks, to Black folk, and not just loans to them, right? For all of you, I'd like to hear your insights on what can members of the city of Boston do in support of discontinuing the spread of this virus, right? But also be there to support business owners to really make sure that you all continue to thrive. Like, what are some words, advice, I guess, expectations, hopes, and desires that you all have? Speak to Boston, y'all. Talk to Boston.
I can go first and let anyway, so what I'll say is, what we've heard from the mayor and others is, gift cards and stuff like that, continuing to purchase stuff online. For us, we believe strongly in advocacy. So, there was just an article in the Boston Globe today by John Chesto in the business section where he amplified this idea of pushing for grants. And so I think what folks, could and should be doing is sending emails or calling John Barrows, who's the Chief of Economic Development, emailing and calling the mayor's office, and their city councilor, where the councilors at large, Michelle Wu, Julia Mejia, Mike Flaherty, and of course I just forgot Councilor Sadi George, to tell them to support the city setting aside some money to give out in grants to our businesses. That's what, DC just set aside $25 million. We've seen other cities and towns set aside similar amounts. The city has it, and so we should be provided. And if the city doesn't have the money, they should raise just as much money as they did in a really good way for the Resilience Fund, which is a really important resource for supporting families. So we ought to raise the same amount to support our small businesses in the city.
Absolutely. Thank you. Nia, Cheryl?
Yeah.
And for us, I think advocacy is critical. I'm reaching out individually. I'm signing letters, as a collective, and restaurants who are doing it in groups. So they just need to hear our voice.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. So speaking up.
Yeah, I continue to echo the advocacy within our personal networks. Myself working with the Massachusetts Restaurant Association as well, and really in the things that they're trying to push. But I think if we're talking about, a message for the community is for, our customers to just remember that, we're kind of down right now, but we're actually going to need you when we're back up again. We're actually going to need that, like,
Mm-hmm.
or kind of think about those ways that you can work with us now, to kind of solidify that future for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
One question I had for Shagun is there a timeline for these small businesses to apply to get these government loans and grants? And the second part, are there businesses that are not qualified for getting these grants and funding?
Well, so I'll answer the second one and go to actually, I'll answer in order and do as I'm told. So the answer is yes, there are deadlines, and the deadlines depend on which one you're looking at. So the SBA one, I think the deadline is in a couple of months, I think, or maybe it's at the end of April. Off the top of my head, I think that's right, or sometime in May. And then these other cities and towns in Massachusetts have their own deadlines for when the businesses in that community can apply. So I know that for like Worcester, for instance, the deadline was just this past Friday. And for Cambridge, just announced their program. I think it's up to 6,000 for brick and mortar businesses. I think the deadline is in May. But again, it depends on the location. In terms of your second question, what we're advocating for is that there not be those strict thresholds. So the fund that we're putting together and working with others to put together, we have a cap at 250,000, because we know that there are almost no funds out there right now that apply to these micro businesses. We're also supporting measures by Representative Liz Miranda. She's pushing a bill at the State House right now that's similar to what the federal government just did, which is putting a check in people's pockets. But one provision of that bill also creates grants for up to $50,000 for any small business in Massachusetts, not with no cap. I know that Rep. Carlos Gonzalez out of Springfield is also pushing a measure that would set aside grant monies for micro businesses, which tend to fall under $250,000 to $500,000 in annual revenue. So, we're going to continue supporting those types of things because we know that the majority of our businesses fall in that category. So to answer that question and make this answer longer, right now, currently, there is nothing, to my knowledge, that supports these micro businesses. But what we are working to make sure is that within the next 7 days, that those resources will be available.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to those resources being available for sure. As one of those micro businesses, still trying to go out there. Listen, when all of my speaking engagements were like, listen, we're shutting down, we're canceling, we're rescheduling. I was supposed to be at your place yesterday. I'm like, heartbroken. But we got to keep our people alive. So still being in high spirits. And on that note, can all of you, really talk to us a little bit about what positive things have come out of this for you all, right? Personally, professionally, a lot of people are like 2020 needs to be over. I'm done with it. Cancel it. Social distancing is crazy. People are like, what is this? Even introverts are like, listen, I wish I went out more because this is different, but what, in your own opinions, again, like I said, personally and professionally, like what are some positives that you all feel have come from this? And maybe like, how are you taking care of yourselves and wellness during this time?
I would say that for me, the opportunity to actually slow down and really like take in the details of the business, the minutia that sometimes doesn't get the attention that it deserves all the time when you're
Talk about it
day. That has been the biggest, reward I think out of this. And then being able to look at some practices and policies and recipes and how your systems are and at some point even some construction to just make it better when we come through. So
thank you for sharing. Anybody else? All of you go.
So for me, as I shared earlier, we're redoing some of our admin work. Part of that is policy. Part of it is the cookbook. We're in the process of finally opening up our bar. We had the carpenter in twice to build out the back side of the bar, and then all of a sudden this happened. So we're doing administrative stuff as well as, on-site work, just to prepare. So yes, there is things that we're doing. I'm retooling.
No. Cheryl, you're kind of frozen. Okay. Well, when she connects again, we'll have her continue.
Yeah, we'll have her finish.
Shagun, maybe for you, what are some positives that you're seeing coming from this?
Positive is I've been able to bond more with my puppy.
It's personal. That's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think the positives for our business is exactly what's been shared, that folks have a little more breathing time to retool or revamp their business and think through, what the future of their business will be. I will say for me personally, professionally, is I feel like I am, I'm very happy to be able to, I'm happy I'm in this work. So, the positive is that it's allowing me to help more of our business members. And it has speeded up conversations that I was having with folks prior to this about the value and importance of Black and brown businesses and why we need to make sure that we're investing in them. This crisis has definitely shown what that value and what the importance of that is. So it's a terrible thing that this crisis has happened, but one of the things that has come out of it is folks now see and understand.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And Cheryl, you did get disconnected, and so we weren't sure if there's anything else you wanted to add. You mentioned that you're working on adding the bar to the business, your cookbook, restructuring, policies, etc. Was there anything else that you felt were added bonuses?
We just
No.
Yes, we created a fun and funky catering menu, so we're getting work done.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I see has one question before we officially wrap up. To you women, I'm putting him out there. I'm like, I want this question to come from a man.
Oh, yeah, like that. Okay. So the last question that I had for both of you, Cheryl and for Nia, how has being a woman prepared you to persist as a business owner during this pandemic?
Because we are strong. I'm ready.
You know the answer? Thank you.
I can just think of a few things. Fortitude, endurance. I mean, I'm sorry, Nia?
Yes, Nia, you didn't hear the question?
No.
Okay, I'll repeat it for you afterwards, but Cheryl, you can finish answering and then I'll repeat it for you, Nia. We got.
Am I still here?
You're going in and out.
Nia, you're here. Cheryl, we can't hear you too well.
Yeah. So, Nia, the question that I had was, how has being a woman prepared you to persist as a business owner during this pandemic?
Resilience comes to mind when I think about what has been needed so far.
Through this?
This technology. Love
we
it.
Persevere and we push forward.
I like that. Exactly.
We're making it work. That part. Like that part. Nia, anything else you wanted to add?
But I think that we often are, I think, not undermined, but, underestimated. And so through that time, like through the challenges, years as you grow through professionally and you navigate that space, you continue to make sure that whatever you present the next time is strong.
Yeah,
received well. So for us, I think during this time, it's really about, you know, how resilient I'm going to be, how quickly I'm going to bounce back in this moment, and that's something that I think we've been preparing for all along. So, Cheryl, I'll get Cheryl back too.
I know. Thank you for sharing. Cheryl, can you hear us?
Yeah, I think she's lost her connection.
Yeah.
No.
But we were able to hear the perseverance element of things. And so, Cheryl, you're here. Hello? Can you hear
I'm
us?
here.
Okay.
Okay, great. So we heard you talk about perseverance. Is there anything else that you wanted to add? You unfortunately were kind of cut off as far as like being a woman. How has that prepared you to persist as a business owner during this pandemic? Oh.
Hi, I'm sorry. It's just breaking up. I'm not sure whose end it's on.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear us? Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a bit slow.
It's just a little delayed.
Yeah.
It is A-okay. Well,
prime time. Everybody's screaming and watching
everything at the same time. But for right now, what I will say is thank you all so much, because we actually did come to the close of our interview and conversation with all of you. I want to thank Beckma for, Shagun, for your time in representing Beckma and talking about the economic implications. I want to thank you, Nia, for representing for Daryl's. I want to thank you, Cheryl, for representing for Soleil. This is, again, our last segment of Women's History Month as well, and to be able to highlight two women who are really paving the way for a lot of other women entrepreneurs and business owners to continue to persist during this time. We thank you, and we are honored to be in a position to recognize you all, to celebrate you all, and to Shagun for the work that you're doing for Black economics here in Boston and Massachusetts altogether is super important, right? When the value of a dollar is something that is very real to us when we're talking about generational wealth, when we're talking about sustainability in Boston, that means that we need to not only be seen, but heard, respected, and financially supported to really be able to persist. So I thank you three for your time. We love to close out by asking you all to share, well, our guests to share where people can follow you all and stay connected with the work that you do. So Cheryl, I hope you heard that. Just letting people know where Soleil's is and how to follow you all on social media. That would be great. If not, we'll plug in Soleil as well. So anybody can go first.
So I'm on Soleil's on Facebook. We're on Instagram. Our website, Google Soleil. We're in the heart of Nubian Square. And thank you for this opportunity.
Great.
Thank you.
You can follow Daryl's Corner Bar and Kitchen at DCBK Boston. That's on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and our website.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Leah, real quick, what services are you on for ordering, because you're still doing that? So what services are you using?
And you can order directly through our website. So that's dcbkboston.com. You can also use Grubhub or Uber Eats for delivery.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Y'all deliver to Hyde Park?
You sure do.
Mia's like, listen, you go to Rhode Island, Nia? You go to Rhode Island? Y'all go into Connecticut?
I know where lunch is finishing tomorrow. And for Beckma, you can find us becma.org. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you all so much for tuning in with the Urban Collective Show. I hope that you all learned a lot and really understand the importance of supporting our small and larger businesses. Business owners are here. Black business owners are here. Black women business owners are here. So thank you again for being on the show tonight in these odd times that we are persisting through with COVID-19. You are phenomenal individuals, and we wish you all continued success in all that you do. And I can't wait to physically be back at Soleil's and Daryl's in time, and probably meet us with Shagun. So thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Of course. All right. Take care, all.
Have a good night.
Have a good night. All right. Okay.
So that was our interview with our guest today. We always want to tell you guys where you can follow us. You can go online on Instagram at The Urban Collective Show. We're also on Facebook at The Urban Collective Show. Twitter, TUC Show 3. Follow us, comment, recommend people that we should talk to throughout this time. We have a lot of different customers, a lot of different businesses that are affected by this. So reach out to us, follow us, comment, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, because we want everyone's voices to be heard. This is what the Urban Collective is for. We're doing it for the city and for the culture. So we're most affected by this. The small businesses, the minority-owned businesses in the city are most affected by this COVID-19 pandemic that's happening out there. So share with us what you're doing online on Instagram, and also listen to our episodes. We're gonna be on every platform, from Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. We're also on iHeartRadio. We are also on YouTube, and the video will be on YouTube that you can watch it afterwards if you want to share it.
Awesome. All right. So again, as NIC said, continue to stay connected with the Urban Collective Show at the Urban Collective Show on Instagram. I know right now we're out here with Facebook Live, and what's the other one? Facebook Live and YouTube.
Yeah.
And YouTube. So we are on Instagram. Continue to connect with us. Continue to follow us, and stay connected. We're also on Twitter. We tweet occasionally. So yeah. And as always, we love to close out our show with a motivational quote to get you all going and to continue to persist. So in these times, this is not the most common, most traditional ways for us to live, but I want to leave you all with words by yours truly, Miss Maya Angelou, as we close out Women's History Month as well. So Maya Angelou states, "You may encounter many defeats, but you must not be defeated. In fact, it may be necessary to encounter the defeats so you can know who you are, what you can rise from, and how you can still come out of it." So on that note, it's your girl, Bernadine Truth.
It's your man, NIC.
And we're the Urban Collective. So catch you next week.
Later.
Bye.